Join us every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. We're situated in Parklands, Kitway, along CBU East Gate. For more information, you can contact us on 2676322222. Victory Bible Church, winning a generation for Christ.
Probably I came to speak to someone here today who may be carrying some wounds of betrayal, wounds of being neglected and being brought into a place of shame. You don't deserve that level of shame. You deserve the level of glory and praise actually for what you have done. But then you have brought into shame. You've been betrayed by somebody you trusted, by somebody you really had gone out for to help. Because you've been acting according to the word of the Lord. The Bible tells us to love one another, to treat one another with a due respect, the highest level of respect. But then sometimes we encounter betrayals. Betrayals can come as a result of misunderstandings, sometimes may come as a result of other people's conflicts within their hearts. And you have no control over how somebody feels about you. You have no control over how somebody will process what your good intentions are to them. They may see them as bad intentions. They may see them as an attempt to assert yourself over them. They may see them as an attempt to be controlling. They may see them as an attempt of pride on them. But life happens. And when life happens, we become recipients of the effects of life. As a matter of fact, we deal with people we have no understanding, no clue of their backgrounds. We deal with people we don't know how their emotional being is. And some people react in a moment out of emotions. And when that happens, the effects of such live long. In most cases, someone can tell a lie about you or can misrepresent you. And eventually they'll realize that what they did was wrong. But even when they come out in the public and say, I was wrong with what I said or did about that individual, the effect would have already gone. Their apology would do very less to erase the injuries that have been caused. And so many of us have been hurt and burned by people that we were given out to help. People that we stood with, people that we prayed with, people that we defended actually. They hurt us. And I'm not going to discuss so much with what intentions they did that. But the truth of the matter is that you are nursing those wounds. You are nursing those scars. Those emotions are still alive in you. And that can change who you are. Initially, you were a good person. You were a compassionate person. You were such a kind person. But then those dealings and those experiences came to teach you that actually people don't deserve what you were trying to give to them. And it's very difficult to maintain your levels of compassion as a child of God. It's very difficult for you to maintain your true identity and what your heart tells you to be. Most of us, we have adopted a hard heart. Not that we had it at the beginning, but we learned how to be careful when we are dealing with people. We have become thick-skinned. We have lost compassion. We have lost love. We have lost those feelings for other people. Because the first time we tried to be nice, we were taught the hard lesson of life. We were taught the hardest lesson of life. And from there, we changed. We have become what God never made us to be. We react not based on what is happening currently, but the wounds of the past. But the initial purpose, and of course I want you to understand that God, yes, allowed that betrayal to take place. I'll say that again. Yes, God allowed the betrayal to happen. Not to crush you, not to break you, but to strengthen you. He allowed it. Not that he did it, but he allowed it. Not to change you for worse, but to change you for good. And we come to a place where we lose trust. We come to a place where we become conformed. But the word of the Lord tells us not to be conformed to the patterns of this world, but rather to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And I want to submit to all of us here today that everything that happens must be interpreted in the light of God's will. I'll say that again. Everything that happens to you, whether negative or positive, you have to interpret it in the light of God's will. First of all, the Bible tells us that God will never allow any temptation beyond our ability to bear to come our way. So if God allowed it, then there is his purpose in the midst of that. It doesn't need to be comfortable. It doesn't need to be bearable. It doesn't need to be enjoyable. It has to happen. And when God allows it to happen, we have no option but to drink of that cup. And several people gathered here this morning are holding on to different cups that we are drinking from. Like Jesus, he said, I don't want to drink from this cup. But he says, Lord, I don't want my will to prevail over yours. If you really want me to drink of this cup, I will. We are drinking from different cups, different experiences, different situations. When Jesus drank from that cup, the cup did not change Jesus. When you drink from that cup, don't allow that cup to change you. Don't allow the cup to drink you. You drink it. Don't let it drink you. You go through it. Don't let it go through you. There are dimensions of God's purposes that we have no understanding of. There are dimensions of God's will that we don't understand. That is why he is supreme, he is sovereign, and we are not. And in that space, you say, thy will be done. I surrender to you that your will may prevail. I'm speaking to someone who is nursing something very difficult, very painful. I cannot promise anything except to assure you that his grace is sufficient. His grace is sufficient to the degree that God will allow you to walk through it to the end of it. Jesus said, although I am going and I understand what these people are going through, yet I do not pray that you take them out of this world, but I pray that you be with them through everything. But at the end of the day, God's will prevail. And at the end of the course of your journey, even in the shadow of the valley of the shadow of death, still his purpose will emerge. And when his purpose emerges, you will emerge with God's purpose. And it is at that moment you'll be able to say, no weapon that is formed against me shall prosper. As silver tried in the furnace of the earth, Iron sharpens iron. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, and yes, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hung our harp as it were. I will lift up my eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. You'll be able to say, my Redeemer lives. And so betrayal happens not because you consent to it, not because you open up to it. Because most of us have ended up being so closed up. Because the last time we opened up ourselves, the unwanted happened. And so the remedy and the only safe place we have found is to become so closed up. But little do you know that being that closed up, you are closing yourself up to potential helpers. You have so much secured yourself that no one can penetrate, even those that are sent by God to deliver an answer to you. Because that betrayal has betrayed your faith, has betrayed your trust in God. But it has also betrayed your purpose for which you live. You have become detached. You have created a safe zone. You have barricaded yourself. You have fortified yourself. No one comes in and no one goes out. Because you are hurting over something that was supposed to sharpen you. It didn't need to change you, but you have taken it wrongly. And in the process, and please hear me, that's how Satan takes what God meant to be a blessing to you, and he uses it against the purposes of God for your life. Because you are not interpreting it in light of God's will. If someone betrays you, ask, what's God's purpose in this? If someone says something bad about you, instead of you fighting, ask, what could be God's purpose in this? I don't want to give you several examples. I can pick on the example of Joseph. When Joseph was hurt by his brothers, he did not turn his anger against the brothers. He turned to the Lord and said, what is it that you want to accomplish through this? May I take this opportunity to speak to my fellow sisters and brothers who see devils in everything. Please see God. See God. If the Bible says the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord, then I will not see the enemy when I take a step in a seemingly wrong direction. Because I am God's righteous, my steps are ordered not by the devil, are ordered by God, so I will see God. Tell your neighbor, see God. And God is not only seen in good and comfortable things. God is seen in discomfort, in pain, in betrayal, in trials. He is still God. Because the same God tells Abraham that your descendants will be slaves in Egypt for 400 years. Could that have been God's will? My answer is simply yes. And if it was God's will to lead his people into bondage, Why can't it be God's will for you to face betrayal? What you read in the Bible is not only for those people who lived during the Bible times. The Bible says those things have been recorded as an example for us. If it happened to them, it can happen to us. When we see God, we will have rest, we will have peace, and we will never lose purpose. David has now received the news that the man who made his life so bad and so uncomfortable, King Saul, was dead. But even before that, David had a different perception of life. And I want to submit to you that your wrong understanding of what God is doing can lead you out of God's will. Also, as we work with God, let's understand that He is a sovereign. And if God is sovereign, it means that He does what He pleases. And He chooses Himself what to do, when to do, how to do, and who to use. If God is sovereign, then it means He's above our reason. He's above our reasoning. He is above our thinking. Then He comes to say, my thoughts are different from your thoughts. And my ways are different from your ways. So our ways or our thoughts about God do not represent the completeness of God's thoughts. You only have a drop of God's knowledge. Just a drop of it. And so you cannot box God to your thought of understanding. He can't fit there. Because then God will shock you that even in the betrayal of Joseph by his brothers, he was in it. Then you'll find Hosea picking a prostitute from the street. I'm not saying you go and do this. Picking a prostitute from the street, and you think the prophet is backslidden, but God was in it. Because it was God who told Hosea to go and pick a prostitute. What was the reason? He says, I want to demonstrate to my people how they have adulterated my covenant. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. You may not like where you are now. It could be God's thought at work in you. So David, when dealing with Saul, Saul is trying to kill him, and David still calls him the Lord's anointed. And he protects Saul from any possible danger. David is not speeding the process of his kingship by eliminating his enemy. David says, I cannot help God do what he wants to do. He'll do it in his own time. Until the time that he learns of the death of Saul and his son Jonathan, that they have been killed in battle. David went into weeping and everything. As a matter of fact, the young man who came to report to David about the death of King Saul exaggerated the news. He said, I found him bleeding, and I decided to finish him because I didn't want the enemies to come and kill him. Yet he didn't even put the sword through him. So he thought, because Saul persecuted David, so David will be happy by this. So David says to the young man, who gave you the right to kill the Lord's anointed? He says, young man, go and kill this young man. So he died for exaggeration. You reporters, be careful with exaggeration. He was killed for exaggerating the news that had nothing to do with him. But then David begins to mourn King Saul. After mourning for such a long time, he was not in a hurry. He was not in a hurry. Watch this. I have come to learn that if God has opened a door, no one can shut it. It doesn't matter who shuts it. It doesn't matter where they keep the key. If God has opened the door, baby, that door will remain open. And David is not in a hurry until he sits on the throne. Then he says, tell your neighbor, remember the past. Because most of us, once we come into our space and our place of influence, we forget the past. We forget that there were people that made us in the past. We forget that there was a Jonathan, Saul's son, who gave up his place as a prince for David. Who believed in David so much and said, I don't deserve to be the next king. You are supposed to be the king. And so, when David sits on his throne, he makes an inquiry. He knows now I'm comfortable. But there was somebody who made his life so uncomfortable so that this day can come. Can I talk to someone? There is someone who became so uncomfortable to prepare you for this day. Even in your comfort, remember, there was a woman who was not sleeping at night because of you. There was a woman, she doesn't need to have good manners. She doesn't need to rub you good. She did her part. There was a man who paid a price for you to be in the place where you are today. The moment you sit on your throne of comfort, then you need to feel uncomfortable so that you remember who made you comfortable. When comfort makes you so comfortable that you forget about someone else's discomfort, you are a criminal in mind. David, the moment he feels the comfort, he says, I'm uncomfortable. Until I make someone comfortable, I cannot be comfortable. At that moment, he says, is there anyone left in the house of Saul to whom I can show mercy? They said, we don't know of anybody, but we know someone by the name of Ziba. And so David says, bring Ziba to me. And David inquired from Ziba if there was anybody left in the house of Saul. Under normal circumstances, David did not need to remember the house of Saul because it persecuted him. But David understood that that persecution was meant for his elevation. So he inquires and Ziba comes and Ziba is asked a question. He says, there is absolutely no one, but there is only one Mephibosheth. He is in Lodebar. And then Ziba explains what he was not asked. He explains the condition of Mephibosheth by saying he is lame in both feet. But prior to that, there is a story that happened that when Israel was at war with Philistine and Israel was losing that battle, the nurse or the maid who was taking care of Mephibosheth, understand Mephibosheth was the son of Jonathan, and Jonathan was the son of King Saul. So the nurse or the maid who was taking care of Mephibosheth, when she saw that Israel was being defeated and that they were going to be killed, she picked up Mephibosheth If she was Zambian, I would say she put him on the back. But she picked up Mephibosheth and started running to go and secure the young prince. And as she was running, she tripped. Mephibosheth was only 5 years old when that happened. And when she tripped, oh God, when she tripped and fell, Mephibosheth broke his legs and became lame for life. Let me digress a little bit. The nurse was doing a good job. It was the right thing, but an accident happened. There are some of you who are bitter with people who did something wrong out of good intentions. You've held them accountable. You've never forgiven them. It's just that their level of understanding was limited. It's just that the resources they had were limited, but they meant well. But you have not seen the good of the maid. You are blaming her for your lameness and your crippledness. You are blaming them for your lack of education, for a good husband, for a good wife. They meant well, but their well-meaning was not well enough. So when you are grown up, you are a Mephibosheth. You think if it was not for that woman, I wouldn't be in the wheelchair. Back to my argument. Ziba says Mephibosheth is lame in both his feet. David says, bring him. Because my question was not about his condition. So don't tell me what I've not asked for. So Mephibosheth was brought. And when Mephibosheth was brought, David says, are you Mephibosheth? He says, your servant, sir. And David says, I am going to show you kindness because I don't know you, I don't know who you are, and I don't care. But I am going to show you kindness not because of who you are today. And I'm not going to disadvantage you because of your condition. The favor I'm going to give you was paid for by somebody else. And I have come in a space where I'm enjoying certain favors because somebody paid for it. I am sitting on the throne because somebody paid for it. And so the people who paid for it are not stupid. The people who paid for it are not irrelevant. They paid for it. Jonathan gave up his kingship for it. So Mephibosheth, as you sit at the table to eat, understand there was a man who secured your future before you knew it. Before you lost your legs, he had paid insurance for that. And so, Mephibosheth, you will continually eat from my table despite your condition. I'll be closing very shortly. Then Mephibosheth says, who am I to deserve such great favors? For I am nothing but a dead dog. David says, when you are in my presence, you are not a dog. You will eat from my table. In other words, from today, you have become kingly material. Forget about the accident. And many of us, when we approach the opportunities that God has given to us, we fail to access that because that accident did not just affect our legs, but it affected our minds as well.
Join us every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. We're situated in Parklands Kitway along CBU East Gate. For more information, you can contact us on 2676322222. Victory Bible Church, winning a generation for Christ.
Mephibosheth begins to live at the table, eating from the table daily. And ladies and gentlemen, life happens. Life happens. And I want to speak from my heart to somebody who does not know how to handle opportunities and blessings. If you are Mephibosheth, understand that you haven't done nothing to deserve this except what was done by your fathers, by your helpers. So you need to have a good mind. Don't begin to scheme anything contrary to what brought you to the table. Because now Mephibosheth has got access to see the glories of the kingdom. He's got access to see how people were bowing before David. And if you're not careful, you are Mephibosheth, you begin to think, actually, my grandfather was king. My father Jonathan was supposed to be next in line, and after him, I was supposed to be next in line. So instead of enjoying the privileges and honors that you've been given, you begin to use the same to hurt somebody who gave you the privileges. Christians, please don't plot against people who have given you a privilege in life. Don't. That's witchcraft at its best. Some people, listen to me, some people were meant not to walk with you throughout your life. They were only designed to open up just that opportunity, and after that, they went back to themselves and began to poke you. But their job was only to open that opportunity. They're the ones who mentioned your name in the board meeting. That's all they needed to do. But they are womanizers. They'll even come after your wife. Their job was only to open that opportunity for you. You are not responsible over their behavior thereafter. They have fulfilled their duty in your life. Mephibosheth begins to eat T-bone. He begins to eat all sorts of the delicacies that were at the table. Not because he did anything about it. There's a song we used to sing, Jesus paid it all. He paid it all so that we can have life. Ladies and gentlemen, life happens. Fast forward, David is in trouble. David is in trouble. His only son, Absalom, because of some unresolved issues in the past, he chooses to rise up against his father David to dethrone him and to kill him. So David chooses to leave the city for him and says, you become king if you want, I go. But Saul was not satisfied with that. He wanted to kill him. In the process of time, fast forward, as David is leaving the city with all his people, this is becoming very interesting to me. I'm about to strike the point. As he's going out, there comes a man from the tribe of Benjamin who was a relative of King Saul, who stood on a hill and started lashing insults at David. He begins to call David a murderer. He says, it's because of the blood that is on your head. That's why your own son has risen up against you. The Bible says he washed him with insults and he was throwing rocks and mud at David. But let's go back a little bit. Did David at any moment do anything to hurt King Saul? No. So all along, when King David is on the throne, the household of Saul is hurting so badly. And they accuse David of things that he never did. And yet David, in his kindness, he had even brought the grandson of King Saul into the palace, and set him at the table. But with Shimei, that did not matter. That did not count. As far as Shimei is concerned, David is a murderer. Why is David a murderer? He thinks if David was not born, God was not going to get rid of King Saul. There are people who hate you, not because of what you've done, but because you attract some favor, and they think if you are not around, that favor will be on them. They want to be replaced. So that was the problem with Shimei. So he begins to cast insults at David, throwing rocks. And then one of David's men, mighty men of war, said to David, "Sir, who is this dog?" He used the same word. "Who is this dog who is insulting the king and throwing rocks at? Can I go and thrust the spear through him?" King David, "Please don't leave him." David says, "What if God has allowed him to do that?" God can allow certain things beyond our comprehension. Because you and I think the training for David was over the moment King Saul died. No. It was job on training continually. Now that you are on the throne, probably you behave like that because you did not have the instruments of power. Now that you have the instruments of power, can you be the same David you were now that you have control over that? That's why we say people are so humble before they taste power, before they taste riches. Because once money gets into them, then they know that actually they can cough and someone can rise from the dead. So God was still working on David, even in his old age, so that he allowed this little dog, according to the assistant of David, who is insulting David. David says, "Just leave him alone." And he continues going. But that's not my interest. That's not the big part of what I'm talking about. The biggest part of betrayal, ladies and gentlemen, happened when David left the city. As he was going, now come, let me show you where the meat and where my message sits in this. In 2 Samuel chapter 16, verse 1 to verse 4. When David was a little past the top of the mountain, there was Ziba. You remember Ziba? There was Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, who met him with a couple of saddled donkeys, and on them 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, and 100 summer fruits, and a skin of wine. And the king said to Ziba, "What do you mean to do these things?" So Ziba said, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on, the bread and the summer fruit for the young men to eat, and the wine for those who are faint in the wilderness to drink." Then the king said, "And where is your son's master, Mephibosheth?" And Ziba said to the king, "Indeed, he is staying in Jerusalem, for he said, 'Today the house of Israel will be restored, will restore the kingdom of my father to me.'" The same guy who was helped. So the king said to Ziba, "Here, all that belongs to Mephibosheth is yours." And Ziba said, "I humbly bow before you, that I may find favor in your sight, my lord the king." Ziba is coming and he refreshes the king. The king asks about Mephibosheth because Mephibosheth was very close to David's heart. He represented the covenant with Saul, so rather with Jonathan. And then he asks, "How about Mephibosheth? Where is he? Where have you left him for you to be here alone? Have you abandoned him?" Ziba says, "There is a change in the heart of Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth has changed the story. Mephibosheth today is claiming that now the kingdom will be restored to him because all of you are illegal in this matter." So all along, Mephibosheth sat at the king's table. He was thinking, one day you will die. I'll take over. What manner of betrayal could that be? How ungrateful can you be? How can you ever think like that? I'll say this, and I'm landing. Ladies and gentlemen, we all go through betrayal. And betrayal is painful. But there is a level of betrayal that you cannot bear with. Anyone can betray you, not the person you helped and restored and gave them sanity and washed, brought them to the table. You showed them even your bedroom. You showed them what it means to be a human being, because there were people who were just existing without any purpose until they met you. Anyone else can betray you and you can be okay with it. But not Mephibosheth. Not Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth, I even ordered that all the fields of your fathers be cultivated by the people that I had raised and had assigned to do that. You were eating for free at my table. Whatever you reaped from your fields was for you to sell. What else can I do for you? And I want to speak to someone here today who's been stabbed by somebody very close. Very close. And where you sit, you are like, Ngateine uria. And that's the betrayal I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the betrayal by somebody who doesn't even know your name. That doesn't matter. I'm talking about betrayal by someone. Today they stand and say, who do you think you are? Mephibosheth says, today, David out. Absalom out. Now I have regained control of my father's kingdom. So all those things they were doing for David, the young man, although he was eating at the table, he was dying with envy, strife, and anger. And I tell you, if you don't deal with resentment so well, it will cause you everything that you have earned in life. Because the moment David knew about it, everything was transferred from Mephibosheth to Ziba. Don't let things change you. Don't let things change you. David is betrayed. When he is dealing with one level of betrayal, then somebody he thought this one cannot just popped up and said, today I'll be the next king. I expect Mephibosheth to defend David. The people you helped did not defend you when you are vulnerable. They are the ones that should be British. What kind of a person do you become after that? That's why I'm insisting. Don't let Mephibosheth change you. You are a king. In fact, prior to this, God was speaking to David, assuring him that I picked you from the sheepfold. You were just a shepherd boy. I have entrusted you with a kingdom. I have established you and have made a covenant that there will never lack anybody to sit on your throne after you're gone. From your lineage, I have established you. And many of us have got those blessings of God over our lives. But when you encounter Mephibosheth's betrayal, you forget about that covenant. You become another animal. You say, Mephibosheth, I'll show you who I am. What I did was one side of me. I'll show you the other side of me. Don't unleash that demon in you. Don't unleash that anger that you don't need to entertain. You are created in the image of God. You are as tender as a dove. You are as loving as Jesus Christ. And I came to speak to you. Your destiny is bigger than Mephibosheth. Your purpose is bigger than Mephibosheth. An appreciative mindset. God is just leading you through another valley as he did with King Saul. This is just another level of training King David. Betrayal can be caused by jealousy. There are people who just think they are better than you. And everything good must begin and end with them. They don't think you deserve it. They don't think you deserve it. They believe the highest you can get is becoming their assistant. That they can stomach. But being equal or you being above them, they will fight it until they kill you or they kill themselves. There are people who have vowed over my dead body, you will never rise to that position. May they die quickly over their dead body. Because your destiny is not subjected to their vow and to their swearing. May they die quickly. Because they are putting themselves in the way of death. You are not Christ. You are not Christ. And so when they betray you like that, your destiny seems to be shut. And out of panic, you begin to believe, and you're waiting for them to die. I promise you, they don't need to die for you to get there. As a matter of fact, let them live long, so that they may know that their word does not hold nothing. For greater is he that is in you than he that is in them. Let them live long to know that the only one who's got a final say is God. And everything that God has said about you will come to pass. Let every man be a liar and let God be true. Whose report will you believe? I know my Redeemer lives. Though he slay me, yet will I praise him. I know whom I've trusted, and I am persuaded that he is able to bring to pass everything that he has said concerning me. I am not shaken by that swearing. I'm not shaken. I came to speak to somebody whose destiny has been subjected to those haters. You cannot live by their word. You were not formed by their word. You were not sustained by their word. It is God's word that sustains you. God's word will go through their words and will come to the top and will pick you from the deep merry clay and set your feet on the king's highway. That is child of God. So jealous can cause people to act a particular way. Some people, it's because of unmet expectations. So they fight everything in their way. They reject. What they don't realize is that, sir, if you go up and I remain here, probably you could be the person to pull me up. And you stepped on the heads of those that were supposed to pull you up. You brought them down and you brought your destiny down. You crushed them to crush yourself. You lied against them to lie against your destiny. You are your own destiny assassinator. You just killed it because of your personal insecurities. In God, sir, I know that there is not just one blessing. If you get it, I'll wait for mine. If you get it, then it means your name has been inscripted on it. Mine will come. Probably God sent you ahead of us so that you can pave a way for us, like he did for Joseph. You could be that Joseph that I'm waiting for. So I will not fight you. I will not pull you down. I will not create a story about you. If anything, I will be praying for you. I will be strengthening you. I will be encouraging you. Because when you are well, probably you can speak to the king about me. When Joseph was in prison, the people he was with in prison got released before him. And it is Joseph who interpreted their dream of release. Of course, one was hanged, the other one was restored in the palace. Joseph did not give false interpretations to them out of anger and out of jealousy and out of insecurity. He could have said, what I can see by this dream is that you are going to be killed in a bad way. So the Lord is saying, just hang yourselves in prison. Could have done that. But Joseph says to this young man, he says, you'll be killed. But to you, sorry, I've pointed at you, but this one has to leave. But you, it's okay. But you'll be restored to your previous position as a cupbearer. Watch what David says. And this should be a lesson to all of us. He says, when that happens, remember me. And let the king know that I'm innocent of all the charges. And guess what happened? When time came, it was the cupbearer who mentioned the name Joseph to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh ordered Joseph to come and interpret the dream. Had Joseph killed the cupbearer, could have killed his destiny. Your destiny died the moment you killed that person. That was the end of you. I don't need to like you. I just have to accept you. I don't need to approve of what you do. That's not my job. My job is you're my brother, you're my sister. Your unmet expectations are not my problem. I also have my own unmet expectations. I have them. Just know how to deal with them. Why have you become so cruel? Let me speak like a Bemba. Cruel. Why have you become so cruel that you cannot stand someone becomes somebody? Ladies and gentlemen, betrayal is not a solution. But again, betrayal is not the end. I speak to you, child of God. If you can maintain yourself, even the same betrayal will be counted for your glory and your destiny. So David was betrayed by somebody he picked out of nowhere. My word to someone here today is to bring an assurance that indeed weeping may endure for a night. And I came to assure you that he that watches over Israel does not sleep, does not slumber. And I stand here in this place, being given the mandate by God to declare and to make certain pronouncements over your life that betrayal is not the end of your journey. I declare that Mephibosheth is not the only way to your throne. If Mephibosheth changes his mind on you, don't worry, King David, because God has got everything figured out. Because somehow Absalom will hang in the trees. And I command every Absalom to be caught up by the hair and hung in the trees. The same way Absalom died. He was caught up in the trees. Every Absalom who has risen up against you will not succeed. Because God is your shield. God is your battler. He fights the battles for you. So you will not be displaced by somebody who you helped. You will not be displaced by somebody who doesn't like you. Because promotion does not come from the east, not from the west. It comes from God. And so I speak to every Absalom spirit that is pursuing you. When you are seated on your throne, the Absalom spirit is working night and day to take away from you what God has given you. The Absalom spirit disguises itself and looks like a servant to you. But during the time you are not seeing, Absalom would sit by the gate and near the palace, and begins to incite people who were coming to consult with the king. And Absalom stole the hearts of all Israel. I decree that the Absalom spirit will not work against you. The Absalom spirit will not prevail against you. I am here to speak against the Joab spirit. The Joab spirit is that kind of a spirit that is very loyal to you, David, but it does something behind your back. When you issue an instruction, this is how things ought to be. Joab will follow through halfway. When you are not looking, he will do the contrary. Joab is got that heart of establishing himself. Joab is out there for his own gain. He is using you, David, to asset himself to another level. But I decree over you, Joab's spirit will not use you. Joab's spirit will not damage your destiny, because Joab went to kill a man that David said, you shall not lay your hand on him. He killed him. He killed him in cold blood. And David says, the sword will never depart from your family. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people who come your way. They look like they are on your side, but they are on their own side. They are waiting for a moment when they can step on you to get to the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak. The Mephibosheth spirit will not haunt you, will not bring you down. Mephibosheth is a man who has benefited from you, but Mephibosheth is after what you got. Mephibosheth is willing to go to the witch doctor and kill you. Mephibosheth is willing to plan with the enemies and bring you down. When God brings you up, nobody will bring you down. When God opens a door for you, nobody will shut that door. When God promotes you, you will be going higher and higher and higher. If you are second in command today, you are not going to become third in command. You will only become first in command. For God is with you. He says, fear not, for I am with you, declares the Lord of hosts. He has gone ahead of you. He has done all the battles on your behalf. And ladies and gentlemen, the word of the Lord in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 to 9 declares and says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all surpassing power is from God and not from us. The position you have reached is not all about you. It's not about your intelligence. It's not about your hard work. It is about God. The levels you have gotten to, no one took you there. No one will bring you down. It is of God. The children you have, they are of God. The job you have, it is of God. The position you have is of God. It is God who works all things. It is God who watches over you. It is God who fights the battles for you. So it is not over ourselves. We are hard pressed on every side, but we are not crushed. That betrayer will not crush you. That hater will not crush you. That witch will not crush you. I came to speak to you. You are hard pressed. You are not just pressed, but you are hard pressed. You are not just persecuted, but you are hard persecuted. You are not just disapproved, but you are hard disapproved. I came to speak to you. You are not just disliked, but you are hard disliked. But that will not crush you. Although it has come, it will not crush you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. We are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. You will not live your life in despair. You will not live your life in regrets. You will not live your life in pain. You will not live your life wondering, not knowing where to go, not knowing where to God is your shield. God is your buckler. God is your salvation. God is a might of war standing on your side. 1,000 shall fall on your left and 10,000 on your right hand. None shall come near you. For God shall deliver you by the power of his word. You are not crushed.
Join us every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. We're situated in Parkland's Kitway along CBU East Gate. For more information, you can contact us on 2676322222. Victory Bible Church, winning a generation for Christ.